I just come out of the DNC, so I was loopy still. I was under a lot of anesthesia, and I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Later to find out that was just the initial kind of a lot of emotions. Um, from there, it was shock. I was 25 years old and went in for a fertility treatment and came out with cancer. Hi, my name is Candace. I currently live in Woodland, California. I was diagnosed with small cell carcinoma 3C of the cervix back in 2022. I am actually currently active duty Air Force. I've been in the Air Force for almost 8 years now. I am married. We've been married for just over 8 years now. We are currently fostering two little kids. I would say that the cancer journey has been hard. It was surprising. It was completely unexpected. Um, but through the hardships, I've learned to be grateful for life, to be here. And I've found new ways to be happy. I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was 16. And so when I started having some of the symptoms that I'd later find out was cancer, I thought it was just my PCOS. The heavy bleeding, the inconstant periods, was all tied to PCOS. So that's just what we assumed it was. But my husband and I actually started fertility treatments in 2020 to try to get pregnant. We got pregnant in 2021, and then I ended up going into preterm labor at 23 weeks. We had our daughter a month later, she ended up passing away. And so we restarted fertility treatments in 2022. And when we went in to do one of the IUIs, is when they noticed that my cervix looked funny, like it looked really frayable and irritated. So we did an IUI, and then I started bleeding really bad, was passing really large blood clots. That's when we went in to do a DNC to clean out my cervix and my uterus and all of that. And that's when they found the cancer. So they did a biopsy, and then I came out of that diagnosed with cancer. When he very first told me, I just come out of the DNC, so I was loopy still. I was under a lot of anesthesia, and I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. Later to find out that was just the initial kind of a lot of emotions. Um, from there, it was shock. I was 25 years old and went in for a fertility treatment and came out with cancer. So very just taken back by it. It was the wildest thing because it was like a movie. He pulled my husband into one of those little rooms and was like, "Hey, it's kind of what we thought. You know, she has cancer. I took a biopsy." And then I'm in one of those just like the beds with the curtains around it. Like they've got bed after bed after bed. And the nurse is sitting right beside me and he comes in and I'm, completely out of it. And he goes, "It's what we thought, you have cancer." And so I just started laughing because I was like, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. And I remember the nurse comes over and she puts her hand on my leg and she looks at me and she goes, "Honey, it's not funny." As I'm like busting up, I'm crying, I'm laughing so hard because I was like, I went in for a DNC and came out with cancer. Like it was just, I didn't know what else to do. It moved really, really fast. I was told in July that I had cancer, and by the end of August, I had a hysterectomy. They were concerned with the type of cancer, being small cell carcinoma. It's known to spread really, really fast and be really aggressive. So as soon as I got the referral to the oncologist, the very first thing he said is, "Hey, we're going to do a hysterectomy." Um, a lot of shock and I would say a lot of grief because it's not necessarily the grief of losing somebody, but it's losing who you are, who you were. Being 25 years old and knowing that I no longer fertile. I can no longer have children. We can no longer, biologically expand our family. Um, the end of August, we had a radical hysterectomy. So they took out my cervix and my uterus. They did leave my ovaries for the time being because we wanted to do an egg retrieval. So they left my ovaries. Um, That was a really hard recovery. It kind of surprised me. I just wasn't expecting it to be as hard as it was. But because they went in kind of like a C-section and cut open and pulled everything out, from there, we took out a bunch of lymph nodes as well. So that way we could get it all tested, and it all came back for what we expected. And from there is when I got my official 3C diagnosis because it had spread to my lymph nodes. It made me stage 3. Um, Once we took my uterus out and my cervix, then we went back to the fertility doctor to try to do an egg retrieval of my ovaries. Yeah, so because I had PCOS, my body reacted, it overstimulated to the medicine that they give you to do to try to mature your eggs. So we initially got about 25 retrieved, which was a really high number, completely not very normal. But after letting them grow and become blastocysts and all of that, we actually came down to just two. So we currently have two embryos that are frozen that we hope to use with a surrogate one day. I initially did 12 rounds of chemotherapy. It was three 3 days every 21 days for 4 cycles. And then I did 28 rounds of radiation. I did 3 rounds of brachytherapy. And then I had surgery or surgery before and then surgery after to remove some more lymph nodes. And then I just did another 12 rounds of chemotherapy with immunotherapy, and I'm continuing with immunotherapy for now. The first round that I did of the chemo, I actually reacted really well. I actually went to work the day after treatments, which was crazy of me looking back on that now. Um, I the first round I really didn't have much symptoms. I was a little tired, but that was about it. The second round, I could feel that the chemotherapy started to almost like compound in my body, like build up. Um, I started to get really, really tired. The nausea started kicking in. I didn't really want to. I lost of appetite. Didn't want to eat. Didn't do anything really other than sleep. While because I did it simultaneous with the radiation treatment, so I was still going down to radiation every day to do that while trying to recover from the chemo. So it was just a lot on the body. Um, my third round of the chemo really kind of did me in on that one. I wasn't eating or drinking like I was supposed to because I was just so sick from it. I had a lot of vomiting. I was, just couldn't keep anything down. And after my third round of radiation, I actually ended up passing out. And my husband had to call an ambulance to come, and they ended up taking me down to the hospital to get a bunch of fluids. I got like 2.5 bags of fluids because I just couldn't keep anything down. And then the fourth round was a little bit better. I didn't need fluids, but I ended up getting COVID right after my fourth round. So that I was basically bedridden for like 2 weeks afterwards. I really didn't do anything other than lay in bed. Um, but ended up finishing up my radiation and then got a little bit of free time after my fourth round of chemo where I could just take the time to recover because it was right around Christmas time. So we ended up just staying home and sleeping. I actually got a little bit of time frame when they considered me NED. I had a clean scan after December of 22. Um, Ended up thinking everything was great. The military ended up moving me. The initial beginning of treatments was in Arkansas, where I was initially diagnosed. Once I got that NED, the military actually moved us out to California. So we moved out here in July of 23. And then I got in with a new oncologist. I had done another PET scan, and then we found out the cancer came back. Um, at that time, from what it looked like on the PET scan, the cancer was only in my lymph nodes. So we went in for another surgery October of 23. He went in and he removed a bunch of lymph nodes, and then he actually removed my ovaries as well because it was just a higher chance of the cancer coming back in my ovaries, and he didn't want to take that chance. So went in October of 23, removed a bunch of lymph nodes, removed my ovaries, and then the lymph nodes came back positive for the same small cell carcinoma. We decided to almost do the same treatment as last time, the same cycle of treatments, as far as I do it 3 days a week, um, every 21 days for 4 rounds. So it's a total of 12 days of chemo. It's just split up over 4 different rounds. Um, this time we did it the same time with immunotherapy. Immunotherapy was new for me this go. So we would do immunotherapy with 2 chemotherapies on the first day, and then just chemotherapy on day 2 and day 3, and repeated that 4 times. Um, this time it hit me a lot faster and a lot harder than it did last time. I lost my hair about the second or third treatment, my very first go with the cancer. And then it came back. My hair used to be long and a little bit wavy when it was wet. And then when it fell out and came back like dark and curly, like really curly. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Um, had my hair kind of got down to its shoulders, and then I lost it again. It actually started falling out right after the first round, this most recent round of treatments. We ended up cutting it short, and I was able to keep the short hair, I think, for like 3 days before it all fell out. So I went from short hair to bald really fast this time. I think the hardest thing is just figuring out who I am now. Because when you're diagnosed with cancer, it tends to become your entire personality. Everybody knows that you were diagnosed with cancer, and you become the cancer patient. That's every conversation is, how are you doing? How's the cancer going? How are treatments? Instead of, how are you as a person, or how's your hobbies, or how are the kids? It's always cancer, cancer, cancer. um, but when I was first diagnosed, it was almost like everybody around me was so scared that they didn't even want to say the C word. They called it the C word. And so my husband and I were very intentional about saying cancer. It is what it is. You can't change it. It's become part of my life now. And so we encourage everyone to call it what it is. It's cancer. But figuring out who I am through this diagnosis, through losing my fertility, figuring out how to navigate marriage as a young married woman, knowing we wanted a family, um, just redefining me through the entire process. I would say that I probably have one of the best situations of anybody I've ever met going through the cancer diagnosis. Um, my leadership has been phenomenal, Arkansas and here in California, where as soon as I told them, hey, this is what's going on, I got the cancer diagnosis, I have to go through treatments, they initially was like, you know what, take care of you, take care of your family, your job will be here. The mission will continue. We just need you to be okay. Um, and so they gave me plenty of time off, about 2 weeks every cycle of chemo. Um, During the radiation, I had that entire month off of work where I would just go to radiation every day. They I would 1,000% recommend the Air Force to anybody who has been thinking about joining, because it's been nothing. They talk a lot about the military being family, but I never really experienced that until I went through this journey where we had people bringing us meals, especially in Arkansas, because we didn't have a lot of family out there. So people would bring us meals. They would constantly be calling and checking in. They would come by and just make sure we didn't need anything. It was just an entire support system where none of them are related to you. It's just all friends who became family. That even though it might take time, and more than likely you'll need help with therapists or with family, you can become anybody you want to be past your cancer diagnosis. Your cancer doesn't have to be who you are. It doesn't have to become your personality or become the only thing that stands out in your life. Um, Nowadays, you can truly come through the cancer as anybody, as anything. Whether you struggle with your marriage or your fertility or anything that you struggle with, there's help. You can talk to somebody. There's different routes for children. I mean, you can foster, you can adopt, you can have biological freeze embryos. If you don't want any of that, that's fine too. You can just be whoever you are. But end of day, be all, cancer doesn't have to be your entire story. The only thing that I would add is just for people to know that it's okay to need help. I was a very strong-headed, very independent type A person, so it was hard for me to take a step back and acknowledge when I needed help. But that help, yes, it's getting through your treatments and having family or a support system, but it's also okay to seek out therapy. It's okay to need someone to talk to because it is a lot. You lose a lot of who you are when you're given the different timelines for everything, or when the doctor tells you your prognosis. It's okay to not be okay. You can cry, you can scream, you can do what you need to do, but at the end of the day, you've got to work through it so you can continue to fight.